If you watched my last video where Ron and I rode our bikes in the Kilted Duck Poker Run race, you may have noticed I had a lot of problems with my camera and I missed a lot of footage on that ride. Well, since a lot of the riding we do is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, I don't want to miss any more. So, I went out and I bought a new camera. I got the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro camera, made specifically for extreme sports like riding our motorcycles out in the woods. As I was unpackaging it, it became very apparent that I wasn't just going to slap this on my helmet and go. The number of recording options was staggering, and it quickly became obvious I was going to have to do some research and testing before I could use it. So, in this video, I'm going to share with you what I learned so you don't have to do all the research I just got done doing. Right out of the gate, this camera has a multitude of different recording resolutions. There's 5 different versions of stabilization, 2 different recording modes, daily and sport, several different recording widths, also known as field of view, 2 different recording aspect ratios, many different frame rates out the gazoo, the ability to save slow motion video, as well as time lapse. I won't be using that function while I'm riding. Then there's another weird function called DeWarp. I'm pretty sure it has nothing to do with Star Trek, but we'll look into it. So, I've researched all of the above. Now let's see if I can figure out how to explain it to everybody else. Sit down, put on your seatbelt, and hang on. Okay, when you're setting your camera up to go for a ride, these are the things you have to deal with. You need to select your resolution, your aspect ratio, and your frames per second. All of this stuff is pretty much the same as previous DJI cameras. What I want to cover first is this stuff up here, because it's the most different in this new camera. This will be your stabilization and recording width functions. Upon opening this menu, you'll see you have more options than you used to have. The left side of the screen is your stabilization modes, while on the right side of the screen is your recording width modes. These are grouped together on one menu because they directly affect each other and how the camera operates. First item we'll cover is stabilization. What happens if you don't have stabilization? Well, let's find out. Let's turn it off and go for a ride. Here we can see it would make a very unpleasant video to watch. Kind of making me a little seasick. To fix this, we select what's called Rock Steady. We can see here there's a remarkable improvement in the quality of the video. My previous DJI camera, this was the mode I always ran in, because it was the only one available. However, the DJI 5 added a much more aggressive mode called Rock Steady Plus. This will compensate for much bigger swings in the camera. It also has an additional mode called Horizon Balancing. Its goal is to focus on keeping the horizon even. In theory, it'll compensate for up to a 45-degree movement of the camera up and down. There's less compensation left to right, though. I have absolutely no idea how Horizon Balancing works, but I know how these two work. They smooth the picture out by sacrificing some of the picture on the outer edges. So if your original picture was this large, the camera will throw away all of this outside stuff and move the remaining picture around inside of that to try to keep it centered. Rock Steady Plus simply makes that buffer zone much wider, so it can move the center stuff around more to compensate for greater movement. My personal experience with Rock Steady Plus so far is that it's not worth it while you're riding. You lose too much of your picture, and it seems to be blurrier than Rock Steady. However, talking about losing too much picture, that's where this side of the screen comes into play. You can force the camera to record a wider image, so when you stabilize it, you still have more image to view. Your options are standard, wide, and extra wide. Once again, you can't get something for nothing. There are costs involved. The wider you set your recording to, the more distortion you're going to have on your picture. Here's an image using extra wide. Notice how all the trees are bent? This distortion is called fisheye. When I select wide, the distortion's still there, but is considerably lessened. The good news here, the worst of the distortion is on the outside edges of the picture. So, when you select a stabilization mode, the portion of the video you lose is the worst distorted part of it, the outside edges. Here's an image I did in wide with Rock Steady. It seems to have done a pretty good job of getting rid of the distortion, and I still have a pretty good field of view. So, after many hours of testing different combinations, this is the one I ride with. DJI claims they came out with a filter to help on this warping problem. Coincidentally, it's called DeWarp. This is my opinion of this function. Number 1, when you use it, you can't record in wide or very wide. So if you're not recording in those two modes, you don't have a lot of warp to start with. So essentially they fixed the problem by not allowing you to create the problem in the first place. The second item is, it says here, that it basically just cuts the outside of the picture off. Once again, giving you a smaller field of view. The only thing I use this mode for is when the camera is stationary taking pictures of wildlife. Finally, a quick note about this horizon balance. When you select it, it automatically drops down to standard DeWarp mode. That means this is going to be the smallest picture this camera can possibly take. So if you're looking for a wide field of view, like riding a motorcycle through the woods, this is not where you're going to go. However, since it will compensate for up to 45 degrees of up and down camera movement, it would be ideal if you're filming while you're walking. This camera has a hidden function that you need to be aware of. It's called Daily and Sport. To change between these two modes, you don't go to the settings menu like you would expect. Instead, you tap on this little icon right here, whatever that's supposed to represent. When you do that, you'll get this menu. The item we're interested in is in the lower left-hand corner. Your two selectable options are Daily and Sport. When you change from Daily to Sport mode, it changes your shutter speed, I think it makes it faster, and other stuff to get rid of the blur that you see in the foreground. This doesn't come without a cost though. The shutter being open longer in Daily mode allows more light into the camera. More light means a more vivid picture. And having great pictures is kind of what this camera is supposed to be all about. So anytime I'm riding by myself, I usually ride slowly. I'm not too worried about blur. I'll keep it in the Daily mode to get great pictures. However, if I go out and I ride with someone else, they're always going to ride a lot faster than me. So I'm going to switch it to Sport mode. The image won't be as vivid, but it also won't be blurred. Another option that significantly affects how the camera records is called frame rate. Frame rate is how many pictures are in 1 second of video. Way back in the olden days, when they used to transmit images over the television set, they did studies and figured out that the human being needs about 30 frames per second in order to perceive the video as smooth. So if you're recording, as a bare minimum, you have to have at least 30 frames per second. There are actually many reasons why you would want to record at different frames per second. The higher the frame rate, the smoother fast action video looks. This is why you see people playing video games want the fastest frame rate they can get. If you want to make a time-lapse video, like you've seen those videos where they showed a building being built real fast or the sun going all the way up and coming back down again. That's where you take one picture frame over a long period of time, like every 10 minutes or 30 minutes. Then when you do your playback, increase the frame rate and it looks like you're building the building real fast. So in this case, your camera is recording considerably less than 30 frames per second. If you want to make a slow motion video, you would dramatically increase the frames per second you're going to capture. Then on playback, show the video over a longer period of time than the original event actually took to happen. For the best quality video, forcing your camera to do the frame rate selection when you originally record it is the best. However, after the fact, you can do this stuff in post-production rendering. To do this, you need to learn this fancy word, interpolation. Here's what that means. Let's say these are all the frames of my video. If I want to perform a function that requires more pictures than I actually have in the original video, the computer can actually make some up. So it grabs two frames, a starting point and an ending point, shown in red. It spreads those two frames out. Then it uses a whole bunch of math to figure out what the frames in between those two pictures would look like. It then inserts them into the video. Amazingly, the frame rate can be controlled by both the person watching the video and the person producing the video. When you're watching a video, you right-click on it, and when you select the option to change the playback speed, all you're actually doing is changing the frame rate that you're seeing. When I'm producing a video, right here is where I control the frame rate. I make many videos that combine both the user input and my input. For example, this video showing what the drive up to Pikes Peak in Colorado looks like. I burned it and posted it at 2x speed. This both cuts the file size down in half for upload, as well as gives the user the option to use their pull-down menu to speed up the video to 4x or slow it down to normal driving speeds. It's a win-win for everybody. Let's take a look at a couple examples to clarify frame rate. I'll show you the exact same video, but it's played back over a different time period. Here's the original video. Here I'm playing the same video over a longer period of time, called slow motion. And on the next video, I'll play it in half the time that the original played in. That's called fast motion. This camera will record in 3 different resolutions: 1080p, 2.7K, and 4K. 1080p has the least amount of detail in the video, while 4K has the most. Because of this, 1080p will have smaller file sizes, while 4K videos are much larger in size. An astute observer may have noticed how many times each of these resolutions is listed. How come? To answer that question, we have to look at all this stuff over on this side of the chart. The camera captures images in different aspect ratios. That would be height and width. But for now, let's just take a look at this. The recording resolution, combined with the aspect ratio, would determine what your video dimensions are. The video dimension refers to how many pixels each frame of your video will have in it. The more pixels you have, the further in you can zoom a picture when you're looking at it. For example, if I record a license plate at 1080p and try to zoom in on it to read the number, most likely it'll just get blurry. But if you film it in 4K, not only will zooming in show the license plate number, it'll also show all 6 legs of the last bug that hit that plate. If you have a video on your computer, you want to know the resolution of it, pull up the file properties, select the details tab, and your video dimensions are shown right here. Since the dimensions are 3840 by 2160, I automatically know this is a 4K video shot with an aspect ratio of 16 by 9. Aspect ratio of 4:3 will have totally different dimensions. Why is all this important, you ask? Well, when you start burning your own videos using software like this, which is Shotcut, you will need to know about all this stuff. This section over here is how you export the video you just made. And you may recognize these numbers right here. We just got done looking at them. You need to tell the computer what your video dimensions you want to burn the video into will be. You also control your aspect ratio, as well as frames per second. So, to sum it all up, the reason why this table has so many different entries on it is because of the plethora of options that you have when you're recording a video. Each and every option will produce a different size video. What in the world is aspect ratio? Well, just like they taught us back in school, a ratio is when you compare 2 different things to each other. So aspect ratio is comparing the width of the video image to the height. The most common ratio is 16 by 9. When you go to a movie theater or watch a YouTube video, you're watching 16 by 9. This is the format I always use. 4 by 3 is good for capturing taller stuff. Several social media sites use 4 by 3 recording. 9 by 16 is ideal for vertical videos, which are common on platforms like Instagram and TikTok. I believe the youngsters nowadays call them video shorts. I have several short videos I couldn't post because I rendered them in 16 by 9, and since YouTube is pushing the short videos, YouTube changed my video from 16 by 9 down to 9 by 16. That cuts your video into 3 separate pieces, and they throw away the 2 outside pieces and only show the middle of the video. You can imagine how horrible a video looks when you're missing 2/3 of it. Anyway, this particular camera will not record 9 by 16. It will, however, record both 4 by 3 and 16 by 9. The best way to show you the difference between these 2 aspect ratios is to look at some examples.